Peter's return. It's coming up soon.
Yes.
You know, how was it for y'all exploring just the whole concept of him not being there and then coming back into your lives and really throwing you off for a loop that way?
Well, I think it'll be really interesting to hear what Peter has to say, what Josh has to say about all of that, because I think really, I think that the kind of like being off balance is much more on his side than it is on ours. For us, he's just this stranger and we don't know him, you know. As far as working out what kind of world it is without Peter, I feel like there was just sort of so much that we could have done that I found it a little bit overwhelming, to tell you the truth, to kind of really go through which cases wouldn't have worked. I think we could have if we had a year to, you know, sit down and plan it. So for most of us, well, I'll just speak for me, I just really looked at the relationships and just how they would be different with the absence of Peter, and then the other information comes up as it comes up, and you know, you play with it then. So really, I think the relationship between Olivia and Walter is the biggest thing, because you don't have Peter as that buffer. You don't have that, he no longer is the nurturer. That was sort of, you know, that then becomes Olivia's job a little bit more. So that's sort of what I thought about mainly.
Now, John is, first off, like such a great guy to obviously work with.
Yeah.
How are we going to see their relationship either change or get stronger when Peter does reappear?
Well, that depends, I guess, on how they react to Peter's arrival.
Olivia sort of hints that she feels that something's missing, or, you know, that concept of, like, knowing that a piece of you is missing a little bit, but, like, not concretely knowing what it is.
Right.
How much of that are we, like, even though they're not exactly going to be sure who he is, and he's going to be this big mystery to them, they're not going to remember him, how is she going to struggle with those feelings that are still kind of just there as, like, a person, even though she doesn't know the history behind them?
I mean, I know that that's obviously connected to Peter and that there's something missing, but I think that it also plays on a different level, and I think that I think Olivia in both timelines essentially has something missing, and I think has kind of a void, whether that's like memory, whether that's Peter, whether that's I don't know. There seems to be something about her there just seems to be a void in her. Do you agree? I think.
Yeah.
And so how does anyone fill that? You know, and how does anybody name that? You know, I don't know. It's been interesting actually, because it's like when Olivia and Peter first started working together, it was so fresh off. Well, they started working together as Olivia was finding out about Fringe division. There was like so much turmoil in her life kind of going on that I think it took them so long, because I don't think that there was any room for her. She was also still grieving for, you know, John, and then she all of a sudden lost, you know, Charlie, and it was like a lot of stuff. Whereas the Olivia that we meet now has known about Fringe division for just as long, you know, has had all of this time to kind of, you know, get used to it and kind of work out that this is her life. That when Lincoln comes in, there's, I think, much more, she's just a little bit more open to him, or to having someone, you know, to working with somebody again. And that's been kind of interesting. She's not pushing, you know. And I feel, I don't know if that's going to end up being romantic or not at the moment. I think it's feeling a little bit like, I mean, I loved having Charlie around, like I loved that kind of thing. It's been really interesting working with Seth on this side, because we were so comfortable with each other on the other side, and that whole kind of dynamic is like a different thing and really easy and really fun, that then to have the two straight-laced ones together, it's just kind of bumbly, which I think is kind of fun.
And speaking of you know, Bolivia Folivia being so straight-laced, I love their interactions together, and we talked a little bit about this here, but how much more of that can we be looking forward to after what we've seen so far?
I hope a lot. I mean, you've got all these characters to work with. I hope that they do. We've done a little bit more, so there is more coming up, and yeah, I mean, I hope it continues to the end of the season.
Now, you said you're working on episode 8. I hear that's actually a really big one. Like 8 and 9, I hear are big episodes. Lance actually.
Lance said that. Oh, Lance. Lance has to learn.
He was very helpful.
I'm sure he was. Yeah. That's why I just yeah. Well, he can get in trouble. I'm not going to. You can reference Lance. I thought you were spoilers. No. They're all big. I mean, they're all big. But I think that 8 and 9 and tends to be actually that what we had when you weren't there the day that the guys came to Seth, but one of the girls was saying, you know, 8 last season was the episode where Olivia came back, and you know they crossed over. And I'm trying to think of what 8 was in the second season, but it seems like maybe that's like the
pattern.
The pattern, yeah. So this is, I'm not going to tell you what this one's about, but it's in a similar vein in that it kicks us through, I think, for what will be, you know, the next